video today. So big story happened, man. I've seen a lot of people talking about it, so I figured I'd go ahead and hop in and give my opinion on it. But we're gonna go ahead and jump into this story. So as some of you may know, the Guardian broke a big story finally. Yeah, they revealed that everything Luke Harden's been saying is true in the Luke Harding article, that this recent bombshell article about Trump and P tapes and everything. It just turned out to be the absolute bullshit that it was. And I got you for a second. I really had you going, man. Y'all really thought I turned full Russiagate. If y'all really thought I went Russiagate, y'all some bitch ass niggas for that. Y'all know I would never go Russiagate. But nah, what we're covering today is this bombshell article by the Guardian. I don't know exactly I don't know the people that wrote it for about like by name. Like I never heard of these journalists before. But I'm definitely going to link the article below. And I'm going to be doing like a whole bunch of series today about it. So it's going to be about 4 videos about it that drops today, maybe 5. So stay tuned for it. But this is the Pegasus Project. Revealed leaks uncover global abuse of cyber surveillance weapon. Spyware sold to authoritarian regimes used to target activists, politicians, and journalists. Data suggest. Here they are. This is by Stephanie Kirchgas. I'm not even going to try that. Paul Lewis, David Pegg, Sam Cutler, Nina Lakhani, and Michael Safi. So yeah, it was, and this was like a coordinated effort between multiple journalistic outlets. The Amnesty International was involved with this. I believe PBS was involved with this as well. And yeah, it's a very big story. So and also I wanted to preface first by saying, I see what they're saying here, like the authoritarian regimes, like line. Now, the countries on here definitely are authoritarian, but to me, they're supposed to. So, as I'm going to get to in the article, they're supposed to be dropping like a list of actual people, that this list targeted and shit like that. So, I'm willing to wager that they sold it probably to some democratic, or what we call democratic, liberal countries, liberal democracies and shit like that, like the United States, Canada, and European countries and shit like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, because this was an Israeli project. I wouldn't be surprised if Israel didn't sell them this technology because either these countries developed their own type of software or things like that, whatever, or they're conveniently the documents don't along those lines. So I wouldn't be surprised if later on we found out like countries like the United States was using this as well to trace and track people. We already know they do from the Snowden leaks and some Assange leaks as well. But speaking of Snowden was tweeting about this as well. So, but let's go ahead and get into the article itself. Human rights activists, journalists, and lawyers across the world have been targeted by authoritarian governments using hacking software sold by the Israeli surveillance company NSO Group. According to an investigation into a massive data leak, the investigation by The Guardian and 16 other media organizations suggest widespread and continuing abuse of NSO's hacking spyware, Pegasus, which the company insists is only intended for use against criminals and terrorists. Pegasus is a malware, and I have a separate they have bullet points in the article. I'm going to do a separate video about that. I'm going to post it on the YouTube channel, and I'm going to post it on IG and maybe Twitter as well. So look out for that on those platforms. Pegasus is a malware that infects iPhones and Android devices to enable operators of the tool to extract messages, photos, and emails, record calls, and secretly activate microphones. It sounds like some fucking spy movie shit, but it's real life. The leak contains a list of more than 50,000 phone numbers that it is believed have been identified as those of people of interest by clients of NSO since 2016. Now, what is Project Pegasus? The Pegasus Project is a collaborative journalistic investigation into the NSO Group and its clients. The company sells surveillance technology to governments worldwide. Its flagship project is Pegasus spying software or spyware that targets iPhones and Android devices. Once a phone is infected, a Pegasus operator can secretly extract chats, photos, emails, and location data, or activate microphones and cameras without a user knowing. Forbidden Stories, a Paris-based nonprofit journalism organization, and Amnesty International had access to a leak of more than 50,000 phone numbers selected as targets by clients of NSO since 2016. Access to the data was then shared with The Guardian and 16 other news organizations, including The Washington Post, Le Monde, Die Zeit, and Studentische Zeitung. More than 80 journalists have worked collaboratively over several months on the investigation, which was coordinated by Forbidden Stories. So this is a big story. This I would like, I hope I'm not wrong in saying that this is on par with Glenn Greenwald's Snowden reporting. That's what it seems like. Forbidden Stories, a Paris-based profit organization, and Amnesty International had access to the leaked list and shared access with media partners as part of the Pegasus Project, a reporting consortium. The presence of a phone number in the data does reveal whether a device was infected with Pegasus or subject to an attempted hack. However, the consortium believes the data is indicative of the potential targets NSO's government clients identified in advance of possible surveillance attempts. Forensics analysis of a small number of phones whose numbers appeared on a leaked list also showed more than half had traces of the Pegasus spyware. The Guardian and its media partners will be revealing the identities of people whose number appeared on the list in the coming days. They include hundreds of business executives, religious figures, academics, NGO employees, union officials, and government officials, including cabinet ministers, presidents, and prime ministers. The French prime minister is on here. And again, I would like to say this. We know the United States does shit like this as well. So the whole authoritarian regime line, like I know they're using that. I would hope and assume they're using that in the context of the story and data they found here, which I'm sure they have some type of data involving the United States. But we know the United States was tapping the phone of Merkel, the German prime minister. So the United States does shit like this too, whether they're using Israeli software or their own. The list also contains the numbers of close family members of one country's ruler, suggesting the ruler may have instructed their intelligence agencies to explore the possibility of monitoring their own relatives. It's insane. The disclosures begin on Sunday with the revelation that the numbers of more than 180 journalists are listed in the data, including reporters, editors, and executives at the Financial Times, CNN, the New York Times, France 24, The Economist, Associated Press, and Reuters. And for the most part, I had last time I checked, I'll check again and update you guys if CNN or anybody has covered this. I haven't seen anything about CNN covering it. Now, I may be tripping. I haven't watched CNN in the last 2 days, and I usually don't watch CNN, but when big stories break, I'll watch it to see if they either cover the story at all or to see how they cover it. So I'll definitely start watching CNN to see what they're saying and see what buzz this is creating in the mainstream media, if any. But I'm willing to wager it's not, because the only time they care about government spying on them is when it's Trump doing it, or Trump-esque leaders around the world. So if they found out fucking Macron or Trudeau was spying on them, they're like, oh, he's probably doing it for a good reason. This, that, and the third. He's trying to catch those dastardly Trumpers. So, and they're okay with censorship, as we're seeing with censorship and government authoritarian crackdowns, as we're seeing with this Biden domestic terrorist initiative. So. The consortium's analysis of the leaked data identified at least 10 governments believed to be NSO customers who were entering numbers into a system. Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Kazakhstan, Mexico, Morocco, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia, Hungary, India, and the UAE. Crazy. So, and this is what you're seeing now is like a map of, where the numbers are and everything. And analysis of the data suggests the NSO client country that selected the most numbers, more than 15,000, was Mexico, where multiple different government agencies are known to have bought Pegasus. Both Morocco and the UAE selected more than 10,000 numbers, according to the analyses suggested. Now, I'm going to be going into Mexico because Mexico is a special case. They have a special case involving a journalist who was actually killed, as well as Saudi Arabia with Khashoggi, which they talk about in this article as well. well. But I'm gonna be covering that in a different video. It's gonna be, you know, specifically geared about Khashoggi and things like that. So stay tuned for that. But it's just crazy, like, and especially knowing the corruption that's, you know, rife within Mexico. Like, you know, Mexico's a corrupt country. Um, it, you know, could be cartels, could be their clients, which again we wouldn't be surprised by. You know, the fucking American and, you know, other European banks and shit like that recently got caught. Like Deutsche Bank got caught fucking money laundering for fucking cartels. Nothing happens to them though. Crazy shit. Alexa, cut the alarm. NSO has always maintained it does not operate the systems that it sells to vetted government customers and does not have access to the data of its customers' targets. Wow, I don't believe that at all. Noise, man. Yeah, so I don't believe that, and the reason why I don't believe that is because Whitney Webb says otherwise. And I'm going to be talking about how Whitney. So this Whitney Webb was talking about this months ago. You know, maybe even years ago. I started getting into her work. You know, really like a year ago, a year and a half, maybe something like that. But and I haven't necessarily gone balls deep in her, and, you know, in her reporting on things like this, because, you know, honestly, I'm gonna be honest, like I was more focused on, you know, some of the electoral politics, you know, pointing out the mainstream media's fuckery and shit like that. But I'm gonna start doing more reporting on or more, you know, commentary on you know, the spying going on citizens and activists and things of that nature, you know, the authoritarian crackdowns in our country and other countries as well. I'm going to start talking about that as well, and especially, you know, censorship and things of that nature, because it's very important. People think that, since, you know, these governments censor, you know, people that are beyond the pale or bad, when that's not the case. So I'm definitely going to be covering more stories like this. In statements issued through its lawyers, NSO denied false claims made about the activities of its clients, but said it would continue to investigate all credible claims of misuse and take appropriate action. It said the list could not be a list of numbers targeted by governments using Pegasus, and described the 50,000 figure as exaggerated. Yeah, fuck out of here. Just like when people talk about, you know, they literally are exterminating Palestinians in their fucking homeland. Oh, it's exaggerated. We're dropping bombs that explode and hug the people, not kill their family members and destroy their homes. Duh. Fuck you. The company sells only to military, law enforcement, and intelligence agencies in 40 unnamed countries, and says rigorously vets its customers' human rights records before allowing them to use the spy tools, which is why they sell it to Saudi Arabia. And Whitney Webb talks about this a lot in her work as well, that these Israeli you know, these Israeli tech firms that are deeply tied to the Israeli intelligence sector. Like, I'm going to be covering an article about all this. That she goes, Whitney Webb does thorough work on these topics, but they only sell to people that are aligned with Israel's interests, which is why you don't see Syria on this list. You won't see Iran on this list, because they only sell to people aligned with serious interests. So, and Saudi Arabia, they sold this shit to Saudi Arabia in the UAE. Now, from what I understand and have read and watched different commentary and things of that nature, Israel and the UAE have normalized ties with each other, but Israel and Saudi Arabia do not. Like, they haven't normalized with each other yet, but everybody knows they work together because they're both American, you know, the America's lapdogs, both of them. So we know they have some, you know, some form of ties. They just haven't normalized it yet. So now this clearly shows that Israel is in bed with Saudi Arabia, which shows that Israel is aligned with Saudi Arabia, that Israel and Saudi Arabia are aligned with each other, which is more than likely based upon their both their hatred of Iran. So that's what this is. That's all about. And but to get back to the point of this paragraph, really, you're vetting your customer's human rights record when Saudi Arabia and the UAE are on here, and they literally do beheadings of women in the streets that commit, like, you know, things like adultery and shit like that. They behead them in the streets or stone them to death. So NSA Group says it only sells spyware to vetted government bodies. 51% intelligence agencies, 38% law enforcement agencies, 11% military. Even if this was true, you're selling it to governments that spy on, that crack down on people that challenge their power, on dissidents. So even if that was true, you're acting like these people can't be corrupt and human rights violators, which we know you're selling this shit to human rights violators, because you're selling like the Saudi Arabia and the UAE. And they're saying, no, we don't sell to China, Syria, or Iran, but you're selling it to countries that are far worse than them, like Saudi Arabia. It's fucking insane. The Israeli Minister of Defense closely regulates NSO, granting individual export licenses before its surveillance technology can be sold to a new country. So again, that just goes to let you know how deeply tied these Israeli tech firms and the government is, because most if not all of these companies like this in Israel, they're fucking bringing people in from Unit 8200, which is part of the IDF. It's like their surveillance arm of the Israeli Defense Forces, or as I like to call them, the Israeli occupation forces. So that's why they're so intertwined, and that's why the Israeli Minister of Defense is making this statement, because they're so closely tied into each other. Last month, NSO released a transparency report in which it claimed to have an industry-leading approach to human rights and published excerpts from contracts with customers, stipulating them they must only use its products for criminal and national security investigations, which is going to lead them, even if they were stringent on that point, these governments are just going to say, oh, this is about criminal and national security, because any fucking authoritarian dictator or authoritarian leader is going to see anything that challenges any dissent from them, towards them, and any challenge to their power as a national security threat. So they're going to deem it as such anyway. So even if they were stringent with that, they're, it's kind of like how Israel itself says no matter whether they're bombing fucking schools in fucking Gaza, killing children, or they're bombing like fields in Syria, killing farmers like animals and crops and shit, doesn't matter. They always deem it as, oh, it's defensive, it's to defend our borders, this, that, and the third, when it's not. It's offensive. And that's the same thing here. It's authoritarian. They're going to deem anything that challenges their power authoritarian. So that's insane and bullshit on its face. There's nothing to suggest NSO's customers did not also use Pegasus in terrorism and crime investigations. But again, they're going to deem it as that anyway, even if that was the case, even if we take their word for it. And the consortium also found numbers in the data belonging to suspected criminals. However, the broad array of numbers in the list belonging to people who seemingly have no connection to criminality suggests some NSO clients are breaching their contracts with the company, spying on pro-democracy activists and journalists, investigating corruption, as well as political opponents and government critics. That's basically goes into what I just said previously. That thesis is supported by forensic analysis on the phones of a small sample of journalists, human rights activists, and lawyers whose numbers appeared on the leaked list. The research conducted by Amnesty Security Lab, a technical partner on the Pegasus Project, found traces of Pegasus activity on 37 out of the 67 phones examined. Claudio Guarnieri, who runs Amnesty International Security Lab, said once a phone was infected with Pegasus, a client of NSO could in effect take control of a phone, enabling them to extract a person's messages, calls, photos, and emails, secretly activate cameras or microphones, and read the contents of encrypted messaging apps such as WhatsApp, Telegram, and Signal. This is basically what they do with our apps here in America as well. And this is how it works. So this is like a detailed, illustration of how it works. So attack vectors. How Pegasus infiltrates a phone and what it can do. Attack vectors. Pegasus can be installed on a phone through vulnerabilities in common apps or by tricking a target into clicking a malicious link. So they can do it by somebody clicking a link on their phone, but they don't even need that. And they could do it through standard messaging, WhatsApp, iMessage if you have an iPhone, and other unknown vulnerabilities. And what is it capable of? Once installed, Pegasus can theoretically harvest any data from the device and transmit it back to the attacker. And they can do that through standard messaging, emails, WhatsApp chats, photos and videos, activate microphones, activate cameras, record calls, GPS data, calendar, contact books. So like for example, so when you're on Instagram and they ask, is Instagram allowed to access your camera or your phone? This is the same thing with these apps that most of the people overseas use as well, like WhatsApp and things of that nature. You're giving them permission to do that. Now, if that company is in bed with the government, and the government is basically relaying that data to another company, which is more than likely what Israel's doing and these other countries are doing. They're relaying that to this spyware company and shit like that. They're going to use that to track you if you're doing activism and shit like that. So it's just it's not crazy, it's not far-fetched. Like, this is, everybody basically knows the government does this, but to see hard concrete proof that they're actually doing it when they lie to your face all the time saying that they don't, it's just crazy to see. By accessing GPS and hardware sensors in the phone, he added, NSO's clients could also secure a log of a person's past movements and track their location in real time with pinpoint accuracy. For example, by establishing the direction and speed a car was traveling in. The latest advances in NSO's technology enable it to penetrate phones with zero-click attacks, meaning a user does not even need to click on a malicious link for their phone to be infected. And that's that's crazy, man. So yeah, so as you see there, man, all that shit is just wild, man. It's insane. Not surprising. And as I said earlier, they use this, like, there's some high profile cases like Jamal Khashoggi and like that Mexican reporter I was talking about as well. That it was used possibly to take these people out, which I'm going to be covering that. I'm probably going to have about 6 videos of this. I'll make a playlist for it as well, so just look out for it. I'm going to try to get it out all today, but I have some things that's going on. I also have an announcement for the March for Medicare for All on Saturday. I'm going to be doing an announcement video, so stay tuned for that too. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and close that topic out there. This shit is wild, man. This is, like I said, this story is probably big. I would like to say it's the reason why I'm hesitant to say is, Glenn Greenwald, Snowden big, is because Whitney Webb's been talking about this shit for months, if not years, for the last 2, maybe even 4 years. As long as she's been doing journalism, she's been writing about this, but people write her off as like this kook or whatever they see her as, because they have this cognitive dissonance where they don't want to think things are really as bad as they are. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close the video out here, guys. Thanks for tuning in. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Emphasis on all that, because y'all know YouTube be trying to keep me down. If you're on Odyssey, keep showing love on there as well. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. Peace.